part of the meeting.
Let me call the meeting to order. It is 7:31.
What?
Yes, Andrea, say that again. You sent an email out to us on Ken Deeds, and who said that?
Right. So I ran into his daughter because I know we were having trouble getting a hold of him, and I ran into his daughter at a toddler thing, and she gave him my number, and then I texted him or whatever, and he just said he thought this subcommittee was going to happen back in the fall, and now he's too busy, and so he doesn't really have time for it. And so I don't know if that counts as like taking himself off the subcommittee, so that we don't have this weird not quorum issue, or how that works, because I didn't really get a very good answer last Thursday at the meeting about like if it had to be something that happened in our meeting, and then it had to be something that happened in the next Board of Selectmen meeting, and then come back to our meeting. So I just didn't want to keep running into the risk of not ever having a quorum.
Well, the only way we don't have a quorum is if we have fewer than 3 members.
Right. Well,
So
we're only at a, that's happened, where our track record is not super awesome.
that is true, but we can make it up, I think. And so let's jump right into it. We have the minutes from the January 31st meeting. Do I have a motion to approve? Any questions? Motion to approve, or any thoughts, questions, comments?
So seconding the motion to talk about the minutes, I guess.
Yep. So there is a motion on the floor. Is it seconded?
So moved, I guess.
Okay, so it's seconded by Andrea. Any discussions, comments, concerns? Hearing none, I'll call for acceptance of them. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Let's see. So let's just catch up if we can. And again, I apologize for last meeting, but when we left and I sent Glenn, I had sent you an update as to where I was, and subsequently I have some other information. But Andrea, Iris said that he sent you the noise ordinances. Is that the regs?
Did send me those. What do you want me to like screen share them, or
are they long such that we should just all read them and go from there, or
horribly long?
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay.
Let me see. I thought he sent them to everybody. That was my bad.
It's okay.
It is yeah, one of them is 4 pages long, and the other one is, the motorcycle one is 5 pages long.
Okay, so why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, just forward them on to myself, Glenn, and
Okay.
And then we can read them and make sure that we understand them.
Right.
And then discuss them next time.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I thought that he had sent them to everybody.
No, that's okay. No worries about that.
So there's going to be 2 of them. One of them is about decibel restrictions for motorcycles, and one is about decibel restrictions for motor vehicles. Yeah, I'll just send those. So it's like 9 pages total.
Okay, that's great. Because I think, and help me if weigh in, you guys, what you think. I think what we need to do is just sort of put on I think we've identified the problems, correct? And then I think at that point, what we need to do is say, what are some solutions? And those solutions probably have to be drilled down on, so that we can then, when we say to the selectmen, when we make a recommendation, it's based on somewhat within the rules. For instance, it would be, I've looked into signs, but if you can't move a sign, then there's no reason or there's a process in which to move the sign, we need to be able to elaborate, I think, on that to the selectmen and say, this is the process that we think that should be done. That makes,
Okay.
that makes sense.
Right. Okay. Okay, so this like mini discussion about sending them, okay. And I guess if Ira joins us, he could maybe talk a little bit more about any highlights that he specifically wanted, but we can talk about it more next time, because you're right, the rules, we have to decide things within the rules, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So to that order, just updating where I was last time, I've spoken to a number of people who've had, I think, very good suggestions. And I'm trying to track down, I think what we could do is we could list those suggestions and ideas and thoughts, parse them into the different categories that they go, DOT, trooper, town, and then put those together in that final recommendation, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So, you know, I think what's been clear to me is that people, at least coming from the south, are speeding way too fast and don't really brake until they come up the hill. And
Yep.
also the people going out of town, once they pass, they're past your house, Andrea, but basically the Art Association, they start hitting the pedal because they see the drop and they see the distance. And people are passing in unsafe ways and speeding in unsafe ways. So I think we need to do that. A big one that I've run across is the crosswalks. People, and I myself, it happened to me today. I pulled out of my office heading north, traffic everywhere. I'm looking, and there's the car has right near Ira's store, they painted the strip so that people aren't parked there, but a person was parked somewhat in there. There's a telephone pole. I start
Mhm.
proceeding, I look left, see no one. I start proceeding, I look right, and a woman steps from behind this telephone pole into the crosswalk, and I'm already through it. So there's some problem there, even if you're trying to be aware.
Right.
And I don't know how to address it. DOT's rule is clearly to have enough space between the curb or the crosswalk, and so that you can actually see someone, but there is a pole there, and and there's a lot goes on right there at that section.
Yeah.
People pull into Ira's.
So you're talking about the crosswalk at the library?
No, the crosswalk in front of my office, in effect.
Oh, yeah.
It goes across to the liquor store.
Right. Okay.
So, and it might be alleviated when they do the new sidewalks, because someone's going to
Right.
actually have to step down. You're going to see actually the height difference, I think, between a person on the sidewalk and a person walking, I would hope.
Right. Okay. So that, yeah, part of that is, you're right, the cars parked there. There was some discussion with the sidewalks about making, like, delineating more spaces where you couldn't park closer to the crosswalks. Is that what you were talking about too?
Yeah, well, they've already done that, Andrea.
Okay.
DOT has come out, when pressed about the crosswalks, that DOT did come out. We had to paint, we, the town, had to paint the stripes. But
Okay.
we did the legal setback from the crosswalk. And we had to put up no parking signs, which have been done, and they are erected and in. So most people, when I've noticed, have respected that. So it's not like it's, it's going to be one off. But it does beg the question whether we all want to think about some sort of push button when you go to the crosswalk and it blinks or it spins or it does something to get the motorist's attention.
Yeah. They have those a lot of places, but I've experienced them mostly when I lived in St. Augustine, Florida for grad school, both downtown St. Augustine and in the A1A beach area. They have little buttons like on the yellow diamond crosswalk.
Yep.
excuse you, I'm in a meeting. Where you push the button and it flashes. And then the other thing we have that's low tech that was really great was they have like these PVC pipe things on the poles themselves that say where the crosswalk is, and the PVC pipe is a holder for flags, and you take the flag out and you wave it.
Yep, I've seen that.
So those are really fun.
I saw those in Jackson Hole. That was interesting. But that was when for me, it was a broad area in which you saw someone crossing.
Right.
I don't think you're going to get somebody who thinks it's just 3 strides across the street who's going to grab a flag necessarily. So, but I don't know. I think I don't know. I think it's all.
It.
Yep.
When Chris, when was DOT here? Was there a representative? You said that they were here to look at that crosswalk?
No, they weren't. Well, they may have been here, but that was Joyce, remember, was it last year, 2 years ago?
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
Was it in
actually,
2016 during the road safety audit?
No. It was when John Lindsay was still, he was retired, or he wasn't working, and he was out. I remember it was I want to say a springish day. So it had to have been a year and a half ago, maybe.
Okay.
But that's it, and they weren't even really here. They basically, we being the town, pressed them on safety in the crosswalks, and they said, well, technically you're not to code. You're not to code, and the reason we weren't to code to a large degree, or sort of like we don't want to be to code, is because we always wanted more parking spaces on Route 7. So it was really a push me pull you between, do we do safety or do we do more parking for everybody? And I think the conclusion was wisely decided that we needed to do it for safety. So the signs are up, and that's what I was referring to, Glenn. Following DOT's rules.
And what did you call that? A setback? You had to paint.
It's a setback from the crosswalk that is required by DOT, and I think it's at least 1 parking space deep.
Okay.
And keep in mind, it's supposed to be on all 4 sides. So they put one in front of my office, one in front of, well, I think there was enough room because there's a curb cut from my office corner to the yellow building, the town center. And I believe there's a curb cut wide enough where Ira's access to his driveway was. So they didn't have to put them on the other side. You'll also notice one up right at the corner of Lane Street. Right in front of the yellow house. And so anyway, that's what we, the town, did to try to mitigate that kind of concern.
So it just popped in my brain. It's not about a crosswalk, but it's about this no parking situation. On 7, just north of the intersection, there's like a weird spot where the sidewalk curb doesn't really exist, but also like the shoulder parking area doesn't really exist, sort of in front of Swift. And so people like the electricians and plumbers coming to work on House of Books and Wilson were parking on the sidewalk. So in that like first spot where like just north of the intersection. So I don't know if that's something that needs to be repainted, because it's not a parking spot, it's a sidewalk.
Yep, you're right. And that happened all the way down to the corner when they were redoing the Swift and such. So that I don't think that really was a parking element, as it was. It's unclear because there's no curb. And so the sidewalks will definitely fix all that. They're going to be granite curbs, so anyone pulling up is not going to pull their truck up and over that granite, believe me. So so I think that recommendation is, unless we want something in the immediacy, which if we think that it's necessary, we can tell the selectmen now they should go out and do it. But I think I believe the sidewalks development of the sidewalk will rectify that problem.
Okay.
Here's a question, Chris. So regarding the streetscape project as it was developed, it's out to bid now. Was Connecticut DOT involved in that in any way? Did we need to contact them? Are they going to weigh in on anything when that starts? I mean, is any ideas about that?
So yes, DOT has been involved from pretty much the beginning, and as you can well imagine, with a government entity, they only give you half information, and so it has been part of the delay system that we've had. We had everything ready, and then we had issues with right-of-ways. I don't know if you recall, but there was a snafu whereby the Episcopalian church there owned into the street, and so they had to clean that up. And so, but DOT is heavily involved, and they're actually dictating certain things. And our committee has been sort of pushing back. They want what they call as a snow shelf, and a snow shelf is basically a place where they can push their snow. DOT can push snow to keep it off of Route 7. And we need it for parking and sidewalks, and we don't have enough room for all of that. So they've negotiated that somewhat. And then they are the final arbiters of what we do, because keep in mind, we are in their right of way, but the responsibility is ours as a town to build and maintain. So, yeah, so I think to a degree that will help us to, once we have the sidewalks, I don't know where they are. I haven't stayed abreast of where they are. Glenn, do you know anything with that?
Bids are still out, so we're still collecting, as far as I know.
Right. Okay. Well, with given the environment today, with gas and oil going up, with materials escalating, we're probably gonna be in for a pretty rude awakening on pricing, but we'll see.
We'll see.
So let's see, what else do we have on this? So resident trooper program, have you gotten any sort of perspective on that, Glenn?
No, I haven't been able to. I haven't had the time to find Andrew himself. I did speak with Jean, and she gave me, an answer, but I think we need something from Andrew himself. So yeah, and it's just been super busy here at school, and then of course with budget season. So our next meeting is in a month. Is that right? Is that correct that I see on this? So that will give me plenty of time to actually find Trooper Fisher. So
That's what it says on our meeting.
Yeah, I didn't-
on this agenda, but on our previous, like if you look at my meeting notes from the previous meeting, we had said, oh, we're just gonna block out we're gonna meet on all the Thursdays except for last Thursday when it was the
Last
Board of
Thursday.
Selectmen meeting, because we wanted to just like get it done
Right.
before they broke ground on the sidewalk stuff.
Right.
That was what we
So-
talked about.
So I think, Glenn, to the point, it really was more to figure out what percentage of time we're getting down, so we could get clarity. So Jean might not know that. I think if you can just make a call to Andrew, and just say, hey, look, we're just trying to understand your flow of work and where you pulled and how you pulled, and what percentage of time do you think you do have for downtown. Just a
quick call. Yep. Okay.
yeah, and a broad sort of idea on that, because again, this is not something that we're specifically with respect to enforcement going and saying, oh, our resident trooper is the problem. I think it's bigger than that, and I think we need to one, elucidate the issue and see how we can solve it and what we solve it with. I've spoken to Maria Horn on a couple of issues. One that I noted in that note that I sent you, Glenn, last week was, are there any public service announcements to teach people or to remind people how to drive. And, you know, she sent me the stuff on the DOT website, which I had seen some of that before, which is kind of just, it's more goofy than it is serious about how you drive. You know, I always go to like the old Mothers Against Drunk Driving ads, which were extremely effective, and they didn't make light of the issue. This one did, to a degree, saying, hey, this is Johnny Walker down the street, and he steps into a sidewalk and he waves at the traffic to make sure they see him. Well, no one does that. And that's, well, you may do that, but there are many people who believe, and actually they should believe, if you're in a walkway, it is your responsibility to look, but you're in a walkway, they're supposed to stop. So, and I saw a woman that just the other day, just blow through with people standing in the crosswalk. So, so I think we may want to recommend something to do in-house, and maybe if that in-house works, we can then disseminate it to a larger DOT platform or something to that degree. But I think we really need to think about. I also asked Maria about if she could look into us for just for enforcement purposes, the constable program, because I understand that it's getting more costly, as I think I've relayed to you last time, because the troopers oversee the constables, and now they're requiring them, at least as I understand, I haven't gotten this from anything but another selectman, body cameras, and which is costly for the town, especially for that. But and then, yeah, I think really when we talk about the other thing that was of discussion with Maria is, what are the rules and regulations allowing a town to dictate what a resident trooper does? And when I say dictate, I don't mean that in the negative, but in terms of, this is our daily outline or weekly outline of what we want to have, or what we have to have at least covered, which goes back and loops back to the percentage of time that's spent places. I get the sense that there's been sort of a silent, like, okay, just do your work and we're okay with it. And because we know that what you do is also very sensitive and you can't divulge a lot of it, understandably. But I also get the sense that that the troop is basically saying, well, this is what we expect of you, and the town isn't getting as much of a voice. So my pointed question to Maria is, is there any statutory strength that falls for the selectmen, the Board of Selectmen, to actually dictate and ask where and how our trooper acts, if you will. So I'm gonna round back with her to see if she has anything for us. I do know in my discussion with her that this is not just a local Kent problem, and it's not just a Northwest Corner problem. It's seems to be endemic everywhere, that people are just not obeying the rules. And not only that, the enforcement of it isn't really happening. So so I will follow up with her on that, to be that component of enforcement. Andrea, did you get a chance to look into sort of that cool concept of the crosswalk coming on a diagonal?
Yeah, the scramble walk.
The
So
scramble, thank
I
you.
didn't get any clear information on the DOT website about if we're allowed to paint a diagonal crosswalk, like on the hypotenuse direction. I don't know if I just don't know where to look on the website, or if it's just not very well written or managed, or, you know, once
Well,
you put something up on the internet, it's out of date. So,
so I think two things. One, we have to keep in mind that when it's DOT stuff, we can't do a thing until they give us an approval, right? So,
Right.
so I think speaking to, and maybe what I'll do is I'll track down that person who's doing the Kent, helping with the, not helping, but overseeing the DOT component of the sidewalks. And maybe that's where we recommend it and see if that's a play. I know personally that the committee has talked to, sidewalk committee, I'm sorry, has spoken with DOT and requested multiple crosswalks because there's a big concern of people who walk, right in front of Giffords and
Yep.
and Wilson's and everything, and they just sort of jaywalk. But they are not inclined to just put crosswalks where there are not roads intersecting. So I know the committee is still pushing that. I don't know how that's going to fare. But what I'll do, Andrea, is I'll call Mike Gowell, who's the head of the committee, and ask
Okay.
him for that perspective to see if we can get, a scramble. I talked to Kent School and at first blush, any safety measures we can take, they are of course very much for.
Yeah. I mean, so there's like two things, right? There's that thing in the road safety audit where they said, oh yeah, 17 seconds is enough time to cross one direction, la la la. But there's this other side of it is, in reality, nobody crosses just one direction,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So that's why we're talking about the scramble or the diagonal cross, because that's literally what people do. And so if we can't paint it, the thing would be it technically is a protected cross in all directions during that time. So I think that's the technical term, is protected crossing, because it's not just one direction, it's all the directions can go. So my original idea from that I talked about last time was to just increase the time on the timer for crossing from 17 seconds to 30 seconds. And some of the background about that is when you talk about community ambulators, so somebody who can safely walk or ambulate in their community, which means negotiating curbs, walking up and down ramps, crossing streets safely. You are looking at a general walk speed of 0.8 to 1.2 meters per second. And then limited community ambulators are like 1.7, or sorry, 0.7 to 0.8 meters per second. And then you have like very limited community ambulators. So my thought on the people who live in town and come to town are, they're not all 30-something olds, right? Like we have a lot of older people who would be considered full community ambulators or limited community ambulators, who are maybe walking at lower speeds or using walkers or having to, have a handhold assist from a younger person that is with them, or a steadier person, not even always younger, to do that. And so when you're looking at that crossing speed, in order to cross both directions safely, or to take that diagonal on the hypotenuse, because Pythagorean theorem, you never thought you're going to use it, we're going to use it right now. It's shorter to do, to cross on the hypotenuse, but you would need more than 17 seconds when you look at that speed, at that gate speed, and gate being GAIT, or ambulation speed, to cross that distance of the hypotenuse. I haven't gotten out and measured it, but it is, it's obviously the longest way, but it's shorter than each leg individually, and having to wait for the cycle for 341 to go and then 7 to go and all of that. So so that is something important to note, that we're not, 17 seconds isn't appropriate for everyone who would be in our town. And it's not just about old people, it's also about young people. When eventually when my kid is too big for the stroller and wants to walk with me, like little legs don't go very fast. Holding my hand in the crosswalk. So it's about everybody, and it's not just about tourists and our it's everyone all combined. Like, we want to make sure everybody's safe. But when you talk about what brings in the money, there are lots of people that come to visit that are gonna have to park in one spot, right? Because there's not parking everywhere around town, and they're gonna have to walk all the places. So that's important to know, that part of our safety is looking at that crossing direction, and the speed that people can do that. And
Thank
I
you.
can send actual gate speed community ambulation stuff in the notes if you want.
Okay. One of the concerns I'm sure DOT will have is flow of traffic. And I don't honestly know what DOT's, if there is a philosophy as to who takes a priority, if you will. It seems to me that the light system, as you've described it, favors more of the traffic flow. And it could be that it's just a historic thing, because maybe a lot of people didn't walk around Kent, when they first started situating this. I'd also sort of like to piggyback that on the speed going into town, through town. I think 30 miles an hour is too fast. I think 25 miles an hour is more appropriate. And I don't know why and how and if we can tackle that. I don't know if DOT is open to that kind of change within a village. But I think bringing it down 50, I mean, I go 30 miles an hour in town, and it's still, you better be on your game, because there are kids, there are people coming out of cars, it's tight parking. And then you have a truck coming at you, or, it's just, there's a lot going on, and 30 miles an hour, it's a pretty good clip. So.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know what their take on that is. And you're right that it is very much geared towards getting traffic through, especially when I talked to Jean about it last summer, when I wrote her a very long email about this, and she said, "Oh, look, you're going to be on this new committee." She said, "Yeah, I totally agree with you, but they're probably not gonna let us do something that's like no right turn on red, especially on Route 7, where you have at the monument where you can turn, if you're coming south on Route 7 and turning right onto 341 to go west. Like, making that a no right turn on red doesn't make sense, because traffic gets so backed up on 7 anyway. But that wasn't even one of the things that I talked about again now. But it's that kind of stuff that you're right. They are prioritizing the road traffic. But if you're just going to increase the crosswalk, not even double it, like from 17 seconds to 30 seconds, I don't see that would hamper like tons of traffic anyway,
I agree with you. The hypotenuse may, however, because you have to stop all forms of traffic at that point.
But you're already doing it. It's already happening.
Well, illegally.
It's red in every direction.
Oh, is it? And not
It's red in
necessarily.
every direction at the same time. All of the little white walking guys turn at the same time to go all 3 of those directions.
Oh, okay. All right.
Promise, I do it multiple times every day.
You don't have to promise. I believe you. Okay. Any other thoughts?
So I guess that would be something to bring up about the diagonal scramble, is that it already happens, right? Like, it's already a protected, that's what they call like the protected cross, is because it's red for all traffic in all directions, and you can cross. So, if this is, so people can't cross at the monument from the church to Swift, but you can cross all 3 directions. But I'm saying we also just need either a painted line, or some kind of signage that says people are going to cross, stop for pedestrians, because you have a red light.
Hmm.
And it says stop here on red, like those lines are painted way back away from the crosswalk. And that's not about the crosswalk. That's about safety for your car. Because if you're pulled all the way, if you don't stop where it says stop here on red, and you're all the way up at the intersection, you're gonna get hit by big trucks turning in those other directions. So again, that goes back to your PSA of people don't know how to drive, or, follow the rules. So, that's why, that crosswalk all the way back from, it's back past Vin's house, like where Ira's new store is gonna go. Like you stop way back there, not like
Right.
all the way up at the intersection where you can't see past the monument anyway. And on the other side of 341, you're stopped way past where like the other side of Swift is or Hill is, because you can't see, like you shouldn't be up there anyway. You can't see that, and you're gonna get clipped by trucks turning. So it's really about keeping the intersection clear so that traffic can go, but people don't do it. It's that part is not about pedestrians. We get caught in the turning crossfire because people don't do that, but it really is about keeping you as a driver safe and stopping back away from getting clipped by other cars. That's my soapbox.
It's a good soapbox. Glenn, do you have any soapbox that you're on that you want to
I've got
elaborate on?
no soapbox tonight. Maybe the next time I'll have a soapbox.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
okay,
Oh.
so,
I have a thought about what you said about too fast, about being too fast in town. Would there be any sort of like, we can kind of say, Route 7 is a residential road. It shouldn't be 30 miles an hour. Residential roads are 20 or 25. Like, do you think we have like some kind of
well,
argument there?
good question. I think before we start making the arguments, we have to know the rules.
Right.
Because a quick counter to that is the residential roads are controlled by, the town roads are controlled by the Board of Selectmen.
Mhm.
Any other road that's a state road is controlled by DOT. That's the simple answer. And I would imagine that's what they would hold. I think the appeal has to come to, it's almost a historic appeal, which is, yeah, it was okay in the 50s because, people were shifting gears, people were riding all different kinds of pieces of equipment to slow things down in town. That's not the case anymore. You can't hear a Prius. You can't, and a Tesla can, with one little touch, can zoom much faster than any car nowadays. So it's almost like our technological advancement in motor vehicles has outstripped our rules and regulations for road safety. I mean, there's some sort of I think a tinge of truism in that. And I think if we point it out and appeal to them, we're not appealing, it'll be the Board of Selectmen, but approach it in that manner. And I also think that people have, really not learned how to drive. I actually, I think one of the biggest problems in America was when we went to, you had to go to driving school, because believe me, your mother and father or your brother or whoever taught you how to drive when I was growing up, they did not want you to wreck the car. And so you took lots and lots of things. Not to say that, those schools aren't bad, but I think that it has automated, if you will, a process that I think is a little bit more personal than just sort of, hey, look. So, but there's a lot of that going on. I guess what I want to do, so we can not belabor this, because I think we're all again in agreement of what we want to try to tackle. Can we see if by next meeting we can all shoot each other a little précis on what we're all talking about? So Andrea, if you could deal with specifically the scramble, the 17 seconds, the 30 seconds, and with the recommendation on that, like you've presented to us. I will work on DOT. I'll check into this. Well, I don't know if would you want to try to look into the 30 to 25 as well? Concept,
Me?
Andrea?
Sure.
I mean, unless again, part of this is, I don't think it can be solved by going to the website. It really is a
Okay.
discussion that we have to have, or find out who holds those rules. And which is
Okay.
why I went to Maria Horn. So I can still pursue that, but if you want to sort of see what you can find on your end, then we can at least, anything sort of the DOT-ish would be good
Okay.
if you could sort of somewhat handle, because I still see it being DOT, and it's going to be enforcement, which means the relationship with the trooper, as the two main components. And in dealing with the trooper, it would be, I think Ira needs to sort of help us understand, even though we're all going to read and understand the ordinances on noise and enforcement of that. I think that, if you could do that, and I will look into it as well, Andrea, and we
Okay.
can at least coordinate as to how we can tackle or maybe get people to listen to a reduction of speed in town.
Okay. So the scramble, which involves my information on gate speeds and timing for cross.
Yep.
And looking at the request for 30 to 25 miles per hour, like who holds those rules? How do they determine?
Right, and maybe, well, I mean, seeing as you can proficiently move through and swim through the World Wide Web, maybe if you could just go out anecdotally and find out in Connecticut, are there any other villages that are 25 miles an hour?
Okay.
Because I mean, that would be just sort of anecdotally, then give us some ammunition. I just don't know that. I don't know if there's anyone who's gone to that. But I will also pursue it with Maria and what other political processes that I can dig up. Because I
Okay.
think it's probably a matter of both. We have to, if we can identify that we can do it, then we have to bring political pressure to bear to have it done.
Okay.
I would imagine.
And the noise, the noise ordinances that Ira found, I didn't get any emails about that. Is there a way we can put documents in a Google Drive we can all see for the next
Oh
meeting?
yeah, that's a good idea. So I don't have to
Yeah,
email
let's
them
do that
around.
so the public can see, so we can see, and you don't have to just kind of email people.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we do that?
I don't know. I don't use Google Drives, but I'm certainly willing to learn and capable of doing so.
Joyce, is that something that the town has to set up?
Anybody can set it up, but I can set one up for the group.
Okay, because I know that there are all the Google Drives for all the other committees and
Mhm.
commissions and stuff, but I didn't know if that was like spearheaded from like the town's specific Google accounts.
No, but I can set one up for this group and then you can just dump stuff in it.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
If you can and send out the link to which we can do it, that would be awesome. Just bouncing back to the scramble and other crosswalks. Do you feel comfortable, Andrea, looking into sort of the flag system or a lighting system or something else that might come about?
Yeah, we can.
Sort of adding that.
I can look at that flashing crosswalk signs. Okay. I guess a follow-up to that is I've been trying to stay on top of the sidewalk committee stuff and what the overall recommendations are. Is there like a finalized plan for that people, that they're bidding on? I couldn't really find it because I'm not like a engineer person that would be bidding on it. But that would tell us a little bit too about like how many flashing crosswalk light things do we need to have? Because we did talk about, at some point, the sidewalk committee was talking about having a crosswalk up at the Fife and Drum, right? Is that happening?
They did. I
Where the
believe that is
sidewalk
happening.
ends?
I
Okay,
believe
so then,
it is, or at least it's being recommended by them. Yes.
thank God. Because that is a long distance between the library and the Congregational Church to not have a place. And then the sidewalk ends at the Fife. Like it ends between the train tracks and the coffee,
Yeah.
Kent
That will
Coffee,
be, that will be
Chocolate.
rectified.
Okay, so that would be, there's that one way up at the church, then the one that, hopefully the new one going right there at the Fife across to Kazi's, and then the one at the library, the one at your office. Then there's the big intersection, and then there are no crosswalks down. I volunteer my house to be a crosswalk.
There is one, if you go down 341, there is one between Elizabeth Streets,
Oh yeah,
which is also, it's crazy.
needs to be repainted.
Well, it just, again, I think it's beyond painting it. I think it's something that you were talking about, a flag, a light, something that's going to do it. So Joyce, I'm sorry to rely on you, but you being in town hall and all, do you know if there's actually an itemized specification, not so much on materials being used, but really with respect to signage, and with respect to delineation of crosswalks?
Well, the entire bid package is on the website.
Okay, I've tried to look at it too, and I just don't, I have not been able to successfully navigate it. And I don't know whether it's me or just challenging, but what I'm specifically looking for, that's germane to our discussion, is, do you know if there are specifications for a new sidewalk, a new crosswalk, and new signage that is in the bidding process, or are the people who are bidding on it to build the sidewalks really not going to be installing signs? That comes afterwards, and really will not be painting lines that comes afterward. Do you know that, Joyce, or not?
I don't know that.
Okay, all right, I'll chase that down with Mike, because I think if there's a spec sheet or a list of things that are germane to what we're doing, that it would be nice to know what those are.
Yeah, Mike would probably know.
Okay.
Right.
Yep, I hope.
Yep.
Okay, so Andrea, great, thank you on those. With respect to the trooper, Glenn, if you can contact and find
will.
that out. I would like to explore, well, I will follow up with Andrew with respect to the discussion I've had with him before on additional help during seasons. So I'll talk to him about that and get a clearer perspective as to time, energy, budgeting, and we can look to that. And then I think the things, what we may also want to do is, everybody may want to weigh in. I'll have Ira just continue to dig down on the noise ordinance and see, once we've read it, I think we all come back and weigh in where we see and what we want as a result of that. If we have that enforcement capability, I think we need to voice that as to what we think and how each one of us feels about that, discuss it, and come with a final decision. And then really it's then a matter of simple things I think we can all agree on, like signs, different signs. As I mentioned, Bob Indorf talked about moving that when you're coming into the village from the south, the sign on the flats, it says 30 miles an hour. Then you pass the South Commons, and then you get the speed sign that blinks. And his recommendation is to take that entering the village speed sign, put it down even further in the field, and then put the flashing sign even before South Commons, so that people are supposed to be slowing down coming into South Commons, where you start to engage with other traffic, which I thought was a great idea. And
And who gets to decide where all those signs go? Is that a DOT thing?
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a DOT thing. Firstly, when we put that sign up, we needed to have a permit from DOT. But DOT does allow us to put those signs up. So moving it, I don't think is a problem. I think it goes, the initial sign, the big one that says entering the village 30 miles an hour, moving that may be an issue. Do you see what I mean? DOT is, it's their sign and it's their land. And it's also they who dictate speed. So I think they're all kind of tied together. If we say we would really like that entry into town at 30 miles an hour to happen sooner, which I think is actually even appropriate in the north, because you're starting to come in from the north. When you come up that hill, you're going to start to come into traffic very quickly with new homes, potentially new homes there. You've got the cobble lane dumping there. And so I think it might be appropriate to see if we can't push that speed process out further. As an example, if you're coming west on 341, the village speed drops to, it's 20, interesting, it's 25, I'm pretty sure, because it's a school.
Where?
Glenn, do you, Glenn, when you come in past the hockey rink, coming into
Oh, when you're
town,
coming
Maybe.
from the west?
from
It's
the west,
35.
is it 35?
Is it
All right,
35?
That's the way
Right.
we come home from the hospital every day,
okay.
which is too fast. We go 30 and then we
Well,
go
but it's the
25.
school, there's a school zone, so for some reason I'm thinking 25, and then, but in any event, like, I'll pay
Okay.
attention to that.
Yep.
But the overall concept is to maybe push that speed limit on each of the roads out a little further.
Okay.
And then warn it that much sooner. And then maybe having to warn it again somehow. But I'll look into that and for us. So I'll take care of the signs.
You're
I'll
talking
take-
about the coming in past Kent School.
Before you get to Skiff Mountain, so you pass the hockey rink, you're
Uh-huh.
coming up to where the entrance of South Kent School and Skiff Mountain Road intersect. Right before that intersection, coming from the west to the village, there is a speed limit sign, and I believe it was said 25. But,
35.
okay,
Yeah.
well, then that's
It's
even
too fast.
incongruous with what we have going on in the rest of,
Yeah, 7 is 30 in town and 341 is 35, and I don't know why. But I don't know that you're gonna get them to say like, oh, well, it's a school zone, because they're not crossing, they live on that campus, so it's not like they're crossing and they
Well,
cross under in the
I'm not looking
bridge.
I'm not looking to argue to DOT that this is a
Right.
school. I want to understand the incongruity between 30 and
Oh.
35. And I also had it in my brain that it was 25. So, but I can look into that, because it's all about signage and it's all tied into, their regulatory component of speed. And I'll continue to follow up with Maria on what kind of enforcement and what kind of responsibility we have in conjunction with the trooper program.
Okay.
So if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a follow-up for that too is when you talk about enforcement, do we even need a person to do the enforcement? Deb is on the call. She texted me earlier and said that in other towns, they just have they do it by radar and they mail out tickets, and people go a lot slower now. So do we, if it's really cost prohibitive and even time prohibitive to have like a person spending more time giving tickets, is there a way to just say like speed enforced by radar, we'll mail tickets out and have that happen? Like, what's the cost of that? You know, is that cheaper than having an extra person? That's potentially, you know, that like conflict potential, right? Like that was something we talked about last time, was where they're feeling that their hands are tied because every time you pull someone over to give them a ticket, then there's that risk for conflict. But if you're not pulling anyone over and the robots are doing it because they're just scanning your speed and then taking a picture of your license plate and sending you a ticket for going 50 in a 30 coming into Kent, then maybe you won't go 50 coming into Kent anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep, I definitely think that point. So that we can raise with Andrew as well. Yeah, I mean, I think that makes some sense. So does everyone feel that by next meeting, we can have some written suggestions, ideas, and backup to start to form our thought process and then argue through it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Deb, do you have any comments, questions, concerns?
As a concerned townsperson,
I'm sorry?
she was there.
Well, she's still on the call, so she may have just been stepped out, but
Okay.
but it would be good if you have anybody else that you know that wants to you know, attend these meetings and has information that maybe we don't have, or experiences that we have not had that would be pertinent. I think you know, part of it is a logical approach, part of it is a story approach, but there's we also have to do it within the framework of the rules that are written right now, and then see how we can affect them, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm here, but
Oh,
I don't,
hi, Deb.
I just realized if I clicked on the bottom, yeah,
That you can speak. Gotcha.
that I can talk, yay.
Deb, just for the record, could you state your name and
oh, of course.
where you live?
Deb Schley, and I live at 80 North Main Street in the condos.
Excellent. Yep,
And
great.
also people do speed by, they really pick up speed going by the condos. It's when they're leaving town, like if they personally, I think I went 20, I tried different speeds through town, and I found that if it's really congested, especially on the weekends, that 20 is actually better than 25. 25 almost seemed too fast. That was just me testing. But 25 is definitely better than 30. And I did just look up Connecticut, and they said in business districts that you could have it at 25.
I'm sorry, Deb, where did you see that?
Let me go back and see if I can find where I had it. Oh no.
Well, Deb,
It was a Connecticut site. I googled speed limits
okay.
for areas in Connecticut.
Well, let me just say, if you find it.
I think I sent it to Andrea, but I don't know
okay.
if it was the link.
If you have that, Andrea, you can send it out. If not, Deb, if you can find it again, if you do come across it and shoot it, that would be helpful. But I'm sure if you've seen it publicly like that, we could track it down fairly easily.
Sure. I'm not sure because I think they said urban though. But I think the town of Kent the downtown is so congested, that there's gotta be some way to address the fact that not only is everything so tight, and everything, but you've also got crowds coming in on the weekends and cars tightly packed in, and I jaywalked today. I just want to admit to it, because you have to walk so far in one direction to get to a crosswalk in another direction. If your car's just right across the street, I see people doing it all the time. I don't think that's uncommon.
Well, it's not uncommon, you're right. But I can tell you if you try that in Manhattan, you'll be wiped out.
Oh,
So,
I would not do that in Manhattan, but it's just,
well, I know
because
you wouldn't, but the reason you wouldn't is because it makes sense not to do it. It seems
Right.
very easy in Route 7 to just not follow the rules. I get it. You are not,
right,
I will not cast stones.
right.
But yeah, I think it's interesting about the speed limit. I agree with you. I live just past you on Route 7, and
People go very fast.
extremely fast, extremely fast. So I think that's what we were talking about, of trying to push the boundaries out in terms of the speed limit, one, and two, the reminding of signs. I find what's very effective, at least in my travels, and I travel to a lot of the towns, is you'll pass one of those signs and it'll say, I'm going to make it up. It's going to say 30 miles an hour, and it'll flash too fast, too fast, too fast. The words help.
Exactly. When I'm driving to Woodbury, you get those signs a lot. And I slow right down. And the other thing is in Roxbury, Woodbury area, they they have stop signs and they go, stop. And then we mean stop. Stop means stop.
Yeah, stop. We really mean it. That's the one down in Roxbury.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of them that they're near the church, and a couple other places that they have them. And it's sort of like, even like if we put wherever the speed limit sign coming into town, wherever they, do change the signs, they should put, whatever it is, and put a sign below it, we really mean it, or something, just so people go like, whoa, it makes you think for a second. Whereas just a speed change by itself doesn't make you think as much, but people, and you're right. I heard you say earlier, people, once they get through the light and past the gas station heading towards New Milford, people pass me,
I know.
before the greenhouse
On the double yellow line.
Yeah.
Well, that's very helpful, Deb. Thank you. You've
Okay.
touched on a lot of things that we've talked about. And now it's our job to sort of try to wrestle this rabbit down to the ground with some specifics. So if there's no other business, I'm going to ask for an adjournment. But before I do that, Joyce, will we be able to have a Google Doc up by this week?
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Thank you very much for handling that. Andrea?
Are we meeting next Thursday, the 3rd?
I
believe we are. Glenn, is that good with you?
Let me see. As long as that Board of Selectmen meeting is fast.
Are you running into budgets meetings now?
Oh yeah. I think that's the early one. So yeah, that's a 4 o'clock. So 7:30 should be fine.
Okay. Joyce,
Yes.
remind me, did we not have, as Andrea pointed out, and I recall, we had all meetings running on Thursday, 7:30, except for the ones that conflict with the Board of Selectmen's meeting every other week, I think
every third Thursday.
Thursday.
Third.
Yep. So the next one will be the 17th. We could not do.
Right.
Correct.
So just from the purposes of the protocol of the subcommittee, we are still on for meeting on the Thursdays.
And I realized that my date is wrong. Like I said, February 10th, 24th, March 4th, it should be the 3rd, and then March 10th.
Mhm.
And then would be March 24th, skipping the 17th. When the Board of Selectmen meeting is at 6:30.
Right. So I guess all I'm asking is, do I have to call for another vote on that, Joyce, or did we already vote on that? Do you know that?
Yeah, you already made that motion.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. So we're all in agreement.
Mhm.
So this agenda is incorrect in that, or not the agenda, that we're meeting on the next meeting is on the 3rd.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
do we have to do something about that?
Nope.
No.
Okay, even though my minutes are wrong from last time.
Well, I can make a
now.
motion to amend the minutes to reflect that the next meeting is March 3rd.
Okay,
And we are following all of the, yeah, that's all. I'm going to amend that to next meeting is March 3rd.
okay, so do I have to go put that back up in?
Is there a
the
second? Sorry.
Second,
Second.
Okay, go ahead,
Um,
Andrea.
So previously, at the beginning of this meeting, an hour ago, we had a motion to approve those minutes and we seconded them and it was unanimously approved. And now we're going back and saying, whoops, we want to amend them. So is that something I put in that previous motion or I have to put it in the motion here? I'm just
So
trying
it
to
is-
take good notes.
It's a motion and it is an emotion to amend, which is fine. Amendments are done quite often.
Okay.
So you will make that note in the minutes that that there was a subsequent vote to amend the minutes to reflect this.
Okay, so
That's all you'll have to do.
minutes to reflect correct date of next meeting.
those
Which
minutes
is-
from January, it says next meeting dates and times, February 10th, February 24th, March 4th.
Right,
That
that
should be March 3rd,
you
Third.
just seconded the amendment, the motion to amend that.
Yeah,
right?
and March 10th. Those are the dates stated there.
Great.
Okay, and then we said and as needed, so future.
Well, don't worry about
Sure.
that.
Oh,
What's the only thing in front of us right now is a vote to change, amend the minutes, right? So let's just do that because the minutes reflected a March, what was it? March 4th?
March 4th.
Okay, so we're just amending it to the 3rd. That's all we're doing, and we're still staying on what we had
Okay.
before as a vote.
Correct.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none, I will close the meeting. Thank you, Deb, Andrea, Glenn, Joyce,
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
everybody.
night.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Yep, bye.
39.